Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be getting started fairly quickly. It's probably going to be a shorter stream today because my goal is just to finish up the meta panel that we started on Wednesday. So I will obviously just wait a minute or two just to give people a chance to come in if they get the notification or what have you, but for the most part, I have a pretty specific goal of what we're going to get done. I'll pull open that issue here. So add panel for document metadata, which we created last time. And as you might have seen here, as we have the page set up, we're going to keep working on this sidebar, this little meta panel, which is going to provide some contextual information related to the document that's currently selected. Hey Pika, how's it going? Let me switch my view back. Here we go. All right. Awesome. I think I'm all set up, but hope you're having a good afternoon/evening. I guess it's getting later in the day. I originally had planned streaming quite a bit earlier, but you know, this is just how it goes sometimes. I'm just happy I'm doing it at all during the weekend. So glad to hear you're doing well. Glad to hear Proxy's doing well. I'm well. Been playing around with my new PC. I just got a new gaming PC, I should specify. And it's been pretty awesome to try out Apex on PC, coming from PS4, and then also try out a couple of other games I haven't been able to play, such as Tarkov, which is running pretty smoothly. Yeah, I'm super excited about it, and then I'm also super excited that we're going to be able to play some games together. But to get things going, let me go ahead, adjust my volume a little bit. Sometimes I'm almost like a yell into my mic when I can't hear myself very well. So I'm going to keep my music quite a bit lower. Tarkov, what's up gaming? Yeah, Tarkov is amazing. I've been getting destroyed though. It is so tough. So tough. I need to watch some videos or something on it and get a better idea of what's actually going on because I have zero clue. Absolutely zero clue what's going on. Do you know what game you want to play first together? I don't know yet. I mean, obviously we're going to play some Minecraft together, which is going to be nice that we can both play on PC. What other games, though, can we only play on PC? Phasmophobia. We're definitely going to play that, Tiff. And then, of course, Among Us. Yeah, it seems like there's a learning curve for Tarkov for sure. Like, it's tough. Having like a set amount of money and a set stash and equipment that you have with you when you start off and then going in and getting killed and losing everything that you had on you. It's pretty crazy. Play Phasmo tonight? I would be down to play Phasmo tonight, I think. I might have to set a couple things up on my PC, but I think that would definitely be doable. That'd be amazing. Are you thinking about streaming it, or do you just want to play it? Tired and groggy. I'm doing well, gaming. Thank you for asking. I'm feeling pretty good. This is actually obviously quite a bit earlier than I typically stream. I typically stream later in the evening because of work during the day. So I'm excited to be on here a bit earlier. Feel a little more comfortable, more relaxed. I mentioned before the stream's probably not going to be terribly long. I guess it just depends. I'm just going to go based on how I feel and whether or not there's something else that I have in mind for getting done. Okay, so I have Octo running. I have it open. I created a commit to represent all the work that we did on Wednesday. So we'll just be modifying that commit. That seems good. Let me go ahead and open up the files I need. I think editor is the primary one right now because we have this meta div in here that we're going to end up pulling out to another area. Happy to hear it, man. Earlier streams are nicer. Yeah, it feels nice already. I mean, I just got started, but I'm really excited about it. Love that you got the PC. Same. I'm very excited about it. I am so happy. I have so much to do still. I have to set up a ton of stuff on it. I need to set up all of my development environment on it. You might not know this, but Windows, ever since Windows, I don't know if it was Windows 8 or Windows 10, I don't remember when it was introduced, but Windows actually introduced something called the Windows Subsystem for Linux, which allows you to run a Linux sort of VM on your Windows machine natively. And what that means is, like as a developer, using a Linux terminal is a lot more comfortable for me and a lot more capable than using like the Windows command line or PowerShell. And so I still need to configure and set up Windows Subsystem for Linux. It doesn't come pre-installed on a Windows machine because, you know, most people that have Windows don't need it. I just want it. And then once I get that installed, I'll be able to install some other tools that I use and actually do some development on my Windows machine too. So you might see here in the not too distant future, you can see I'm on my Mac right now, which is what I've been using, but in the not too distant future, you might see me doing a web dev stream from my PC actually, which would be pretty sweet. Excuse me. That would also be really useful if I decided for whatever reason if I wanted to do like a game on stream or something. I wouldn't have to switch machines. I'd just be able to like switch from development to gaming. So not like a dual boot. Exactly. It's not a dual boot, so I don't have to like boot down or reboot to be able to switch. It's actually running on Windows. So I can just open up this Windows. It's essentially just a terminal app similar to my terminal here. Windows has a new app called, I think it's just called Windows Terminal, and it allows you to either do like a command line, a Windows command prompt, a PowerShell terminal, or a Windows Subsystem for Linux terminal. So it's pretty nice. I'll definitely show it off once I get things set up. So whether or not I actually intend to do a lot of streaming on the Windows machine, I'll definitely do it at least once to show off some of those features because they're pretty cool. I really like using a Mac though for development. Okay, so we've got, let me just get oriented here. So there's a couple things I noticed last time. I was just getting a little tired and I think we ended the stream in a good state. So we ended the stream in a working state. So if we were to open up a recent document here, we'll be able to see that it keeps track of tags. So you see here, we've got tags here on the right. It keeps track of when it was last saved, so I just edited it, and so it was last saved a few seconds ago. When it was created, updated, and of course these actions work too, so discard works. That sends me to a new document, but you can see under discarded here, we've got this one that I just discarded, and now I can restore it. Boom. And then also I can duplicate it. So if I want to create a copy, and you can see that it says created just now. Like it actually, that's a pretty nice indicator actually. We didn't have that before. When we click duplicate, there wasn't really a good indication that we duplicated it. And so, edited, yeah. It is a weird word, that's for sure. Especially with braces, does not help, but only a little bit longer and then I'll be getting those off. I'm really excited. Definitely having an expander affected my dictation quite a bit, but I think it's coming back slowly. Just takes a lot of conscious effort. But before, all we had to indicate that we duplicated a document was that the URL changed. It got a new ID. But now that we have this little info panel, we can see that the created at is actually different. And the created at never changes. So we keep track of two timestamps. We keep track of when the document was first created, that is the created at. And then every time we update it, we get the updated at updated. So the updated at gets updated to the current time anytime we change it. I didn't realize you had braces. Yes. Yeah, I've had them for a little over a year and a half, coming up on fairly close to 2 years, actually. Here in just a couple of months, it would be 2 years. So, they're not as noticeable because I do the, like the clearer, like lighter colored bands, and then also the the brackets themselves are, they're not transparent. I don't know what they are. Uh, they're like a ceramic or something, closer to the color of your teeth. They're a lot less noticeable, especially through like a grainy video feed that I've got going. So all these actions, we don't need to talk about your teeth. I mean, I don't care. I don't mind talking about it. We've got a list of tags which links out. So this is using the same functionality that we did over here in our tags list. Really, that could be extracted into a shared component if we wanted to, though I think I'm going to change the UI a little bit here. I think I'm going to get rid of these little headers because I don't think those are necessary. We know this is metadata about the document. I think I'm just going to space things out and then get rid of the timestamps header and get rid of the tags header. And so we've got our tag here. Last saved, created, updated. Oh yeah, we tested both discard, restore, and duplicate. So all the actions are working as they should. One more thing that I need to fix is you might have noticed this. You also might not have noticed this, but the Octo logo in the background of the editor is currently centered around this entire. Here, actually, using this will be more helpful. If I highlight the editor div, or the wrapper around the editor div, which is still fine, you notice that it includes this sidebar on the right, but it does not highlight the sidebar on the left. And that's because the meta bar on the right is inside the editor component, which means the octopus itself is centered in the editor component. And so it's slightly off-center from the document because the meta panel is kind of overlapping the editor component a little bit. And so in order to center this octopus on the actual document, we either need to move where it's applied to the code mirror editor or the specific div, or we need to extract the meta component out into its own thing. And so I'm not sure which I would prefer to do, actually. I kind of feel like I want to pull this meta panel out into its own component at a higher level because I feel like we could use it in places other than just the editor view. Like maybe in the list view, we could move some of our like modification actions over there as well. But that's just an idea. So let's go ahead. I think we're going to do that. We're going to pull that out. I'm trying to think of how we're going to share that context between the components, so share what data is going to show up. Excuse me. And I'm a little less familiar about that, so we might need to do a bit of research here. So Vue.js, dynamic component slot, I guess. So slots in Vue.js are a way for you to define a component that accepts like sub-components or just like sub-elements. And it's a way for you to say, like, I want this sort of wrapper. I know where it's going to appear in the page, but I don't know what's actually going to be inside of it, like what content is going to be inside of it. That we have to dynamically configure. So basic slots make sense. You just call the component and then you pass the slot in. But that's not exactly what we want, because what we really want is we want to wait for Vue.x, our state manager, to say to the component which slot or which element we want to pass down into that slot. Then we also need to link back the active document and the information about that document. You know, as I'm thinking about it, it sounds like the scope there is going to be fairly large. So I'm thinking for now, I'm just going to change the positioning of this octopus, and then we might come back and do a slight refactor where we actually pull this meta panel out into something that's reusable. But, you know, I think it's good to not try to think too far ahead. It's good to allow things to kind of evolve naturally or emerge. I think emergent design is actually like a better term for that. So if I feel the need to do that later, then we can come back and do some refactoring. For now, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to just move which element this logo is centered on. So I believe it is centered on I don't know if it's editor itself. Let's find out. So it's not here where I see that. It must be, it's either going to be on markdown editor. Let's just look for it. Let's look for, in a CSS file, I actually don't remember where this is defined, so we're going to have to find that. Let's squeeze this over a little bit, and then oh, okay. I was like, that's really odd. I don't know what's happening here. So we're just looking for the element that actually has this octopus logo behind it. And it's not this one. It's the content container itself that has the logo behind it, which actually, that does make sense because I believe we show this logo on like the list views. Yeah. See, it's not necessary to show it on the list view though, or the editor, or the settings view, I should say. So there's a couple of options we have there. We can either remove it from these other views and center it properly in the editor, or we can do that first change I talked about where we move the component. So I don't really care if the logo is visible on these other pages, so like the settings itself. It's more so the document, I think. So I'm thinking that we just move where it's actually displayed. So in the content, we have this background. Okay, so we've got this background URL, background size. We're going to remove it from the content, which is just going to remove the logo altogether. As you can see now, if we go into the editor settings, it's not there. If we go into the list view, it's not there in the background. And we're going to move it into the editor and put it on the editor. I think editor itself is where we want it. So let's do, sorry, I'm just making sure that's actually what I would like to do. Yeah, let's start with that. Let's see how that looks. I think it's going to rescale the image if the screen size changes, which is not a huge deal. So down here we've got dot editor. Okay, nice. So now we have it centered in the actual editor. It is going to resize a little bit with the screen size changing, which is absolutely fine. Let's go ahead and look at mobile. This is something we have to actually address as well. We did not build a mobile view for this yet. We're going to have to do something because we want this panel here to be toggleable. We do not want it to be always visible, especially on mobile, as you can see here. If this actually had content in it, which I can just show you, that would look really bad. So here, toggle mobile view, see the content just gets squished on the side here, and that's not what we want. And it adds a horizontal scroll, which is a problem. So let's deal with desktop first. It looks like this is fine. It looks good to me. Resizes appropriately. So that's one thing fixed. We're going to remove these little headings, so tags and timestamps. And the dividers too. So we've got, there we go. That looks good. And then I just want to space them out quite a bit more. So we're going to say MB5, if that's a thing in Bootstrap. Yes, it is. Perfect. And then MB5. And we're actually going to remove the bottom margin on this element just because the last child doesn't actually need a bottom margin. Oh, hi. Sanitic fan. Octo is a writing app for developers. So let me come back to this and pull up an example if I can find a decent one. Here we go. So the idea here is that Octo, you you write in Octo with a markdown format. It provides inline markdown rendering, so when you change like heading sizes, it automatically resizes the headings for you. If you want to do some slanted text, it automatically slants it for you. What is it? If I knew how to write markdown, that would be helpful. Some bolded text. So, and then also one of the biggest features, in my opinion at least, is the inline syntax highlighting. So if you want to write whatever language you want to write, such as JavaScript, for example, so if I do a JavaScript code block here, I get, automatic syntax highlighting for all of my code blocks, no matter what the language is, assuming the language is supported. Octo is built on top of CodeMirror, so any language that is supported in CodeMirror is also supported in Octo code blocks, which is quite a few. Like most common languages are supported. But beyond just some of the basics of like inline rendering and syntax highlighting, through code blocks, there's some other cool features. So it's all of your documents in Octo are organized by tags rather than being organized in like folder hierarchies, which can be really hard to reason about. You just drop some hashtags into your document, and then the tags list here in the menu bar, you just click on whatever tag you're searching for documents for, and it will appear there. And so you notice that this has two tags. It has JS and WebAssembly, because unlike folder categorization, in Octo, you can have something in as many categories as you want. So this one document is in JS, but it's also here in WebAssembly. Trying to think, what else? It is a web-based app, so it's built in Vue.js and Vuex, although it is fully offline capable. It's an offline first app, so you don't have to have internet connectivity to load it up, even in the browser. If you want, you can install it as a progressive web app. I can show you the installed version right here. This is what it looks like installed as an app. And it, on octo.app, the hosted version, it actually syncs your documents using Firebase if you connect it with a GitHub account. So those are some of the high-level features. A couple more features that it has are things like end-to-end or client-side encryption. If you want, you can generate a public and private key pair, and then those are used to generate individual encryption keys for all of your documents, so that when it does sync to Firebase, for example, all of your data is encrypted before it ever leaves your browser. And that way, no one could view it even if they wanted to. You can export your documents in JSON if you want. So say for some reason you want to create your own backup because you don't trust the system. Absolutely understandable. You can just get a giant JSON hash of all your data. It's open source, so it's on GitHub at github.com/voraciousdev/octo. That's under my GitHub handle here. And yeah, I think that for the most part covers it. It's meant for note-taking or writing or what have you. So we're working on a new feature right now where, oh, thank you for adding the link. So we're working on a new feature right now where we're adding a meta panel to the right-hand side of the editor view. So let me pull open a document here, and this meta panel shows you like what tags are in your document, some different timestamps, when it was last saved, when it was created, when it was updated, and it gives you a few options as well. So one of the cooler features, this is a plain text editor, so even though it does do some rendering inline, it never affects the actual markup, so you can always copy and paste this into a normal markdown file. It doesn't provide, any changes to the actual markup itself, the actual text. And because of that, we can do some cool things though. So one feature that we built out recently is the ability to scan your code snippets and generate individual files with them. So this will be a cool little demo, actually, a little live demo. Say you want to generate a basic example of an HTML file that pulls in some JavaScript that, excuse me, that pulls in some JavaScript that causes an alert on the page. So there's an integration that we've built out with codesandbox.io. I'll get to your question in just a second, Rusty. So there's an integration that we have with codesandbox.io that allows us to, using an API call, open a new tab with each of your code blocks actually generated as runnable files in a a code sandbox project. And then you can run your code. So not only can you just write some code, some snippets in code blocks, you can actually extract those and run them with the click of a button. So does the meta tab have your action items from a doc? From a doc. Oh, you mean like do you mean like the actionable items, like the to-do lists? Let me know if that's what you mean, and if not, would you mind clarifying? Yeah, okay, so it does not actually, but that's a really good idea. I like that. So having a list of your to-dos would be pretty cool to have over here. I'd have to think about the space allocation to figure out like how we would display that in a like fairly readable fashion, but not, not over bloat the panel. But no, it doesn't. It does show tags. So testing, hello. You can see it does show hashtags over here on the right-hand side, but nothing else at the moment. So it doesn't show if it's actionable. I like that idea though, so we will definitely come back to that, and we might even be able to build it out here in just a few. You use the actionable filter all the time. Glad to hear that. That's awesome. I love it. I love being able to just write down some to-dos and then come back to them very easily just by, opening up the actionable filter and seeing, which documents actually have unchecked to-dos. Super useful, in my opinion, obviously. That was an early addition. I can't remember what app I used previously that had something similar, but there was something I used before that did like a similar like to-dos filter. And that's why I added that one earlier. So going back to the demo though, so the code sandbox integration is pretty cool. Let's start with a new document. Let's say you have a document, an example of how to make a basic web page, right? And in this document, we're going to have a couple of code snippets that are going to represent actual files that we would have. We're going to have a code snippet here for HTML. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to call this index.html. So all you have to do is just separate the actual language with some white space, typically a space, and then the file name. And then in here, we're going to say, we'll do the whole thing. We'll do doc type HTML, the HTML tag, the head tag. Inside there, we'll have title. This is a basic website. And then the body tag, which is where your actual content goes, right? And so in the body tag, we're going to just have a paragraph that says, hi there. And then we're going to pull in a JavaScript file, right? So we're going to say script source equals app.js. That's what we're going to name our JavaScript file. And that's it. So really basic HTML. This is a full runnable HTML file. And it has a title, it has a basic body, and then it has a script tag that's going to be included. And so all we need to do now is our other snippet is going to be what's in app.js, right? So in app.js, we're going to have a JavaScript snippet here. It's going to be called app.js. And we're going to put some code in here. And this one's going to be super simple. All we're going to say is alert hello world, the really common alert example. And that's it. And so now, you might have noticed when I started adding a code snippet, the editor recognizes that you have a code snippet in your markdown file, and it actually generates this new button here called Sandbox. Actually, let me finish this up, and then I'll get to your questions, gaming. And so if we click the Sandbox button, what it does is it scans this document for all code blocks. And if you have named a code block, it will create a file with that name in the Code Sandbox project. If you haven't named it, then it's just going to give it an integer based on like where it is in the file. So the first one would be 0, the next one would be 1, the next one would be 2, and so on. And then it gives it an extension based off of the actual language that you supplied. And so it scans these, it generates individual files in a Code Sandbox project, and thanks to how Code Sandbox works, it actually runs the code. So let's click this button, and we'll see it generates a new Code Sandbox project, and we actually got an alert because it ran our code. It recognized index.html as the main file. This main file pulled in this JavaScript called app.js, and it ran the file, which caused the JavaScript to run, and the JavaScript says alert hello world, right? And so we can run this again by refreshing the page, and boom, we get our alert hello world. So not only can you just write some code snippets in Octo, you can actually test them out in a Code Sandbox project. And now Code Sandbox is a fairly new in-browser IDE, and so I don't know what all language support it has, but I do know they're adding language support. So eventually it's even going to work for like server-side languages. Although for right now, I think it's primarily just front-end languages. So, you know, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But yeah, that's a pretty cool little integration that's fairly lightweight, but has some good applications. So, gaming, catching up with you now, because I've got a lot of questions, it looks like. So, do you have a way to auto-generate that portion, or do you type it out every time? Yeah, there's plenty of editors that will auto-generate like a blank HTML document. I only did this as an example just to show like what a minimal HTML document looks like. The thing about these online editors too is that you don't actually have to have a fully semantic document. I could have just as easily just left it as this script source equals app.js, and it would still work. So if I so if I generate a new sandbox from this, it's still going to work. And that's because of this editor. The only reason I typed it out was just to be semantic, right? The full thing. Do I have to type that out every time? The answer is no, because it is very, very rare nowadays that I ever start a project from like scratch, like from essentially 0 files. And that's because I use a lot of different libraries and open source technologies and frameworks that allow me to sort of generate a boilerplate and just get started with the meat of the application that's more important to what I'm actually doing. So for practice, it's really good to start it from scratch. And for some types of efficiencies, it's really good to start from scratch. But in practice, in the real world, and that's both true of like what I do as hobbies, like this, or what I do like for my actual work, it's very rare that we actually write things 100% from scratch. We generate the boilerplate, which all of us know how to do, but it's just, you know, takes some time. So we use tools that generate the boilerplate files for us, and then we write the meat of it, the actual logic or the piece that's going to make it different from any other site out there. And that's just to save some time. So no, I don't actually type it out every time. Yes, okay, so you said I'm sure typing out is good for memory practice. Exactly. I've typed it out enough times that it's ingrained in my head. And I highly recommend that when you're first getting started, for sure. Get some good practice in, you know. I don't think there's anything wrong with going the approach of using generators, especially if you are starting out, but I do think that things stick a bit better in your head if you practice it quite a few times and realize like where you might make a typo, for example. I love the display within that program. Yeah. So this is, there's plenty of sites that do similar things to this, and they're super useful. It's a way for you to like jump in here, write a couple of files, and test it out without having to have your own dev environment set up, right? This is all just in a website. So super nice for that. Almost remodeling the code instead of starting from scratch. Exactly, right? Like, every website is going to have a portion of code that is going to be essentially identical to other websites. And there's no reason that you can't make that process a little bit easier of generating those. So that's the example. That's the code sandbox integration, which was a lot of fun to work on. It feels like magic when you just click a button and have it scan your document and run these actual files and actually see the code execute. It's pretty cool. But back to our meta panel here, right? I'm trying to think about how we want to display all of this info. I'm definitely starting to think now about that actionable. I might come back to that as a separate addition, but it does sound very useful. I love that idea of showing all the actionable items on the side here too. I just have to think about how we actually want to display those, because what's likely going to happen is we're likely going to have to give it like a static width and let the line just like overflow and cut off the overflow of the action item, so you can only read like the first like few words, and then maybe clicking on it will reveal it in the document or something. But that's going to take some thought. I want to make sure that the user experience is good when we add that in. Okay, let me add another tag to this just because we've got this open. Snippets. So that looks pretty good. I actually think that might be a little too much spacing now, so I'm going to change that to an MB4. We went from 3 to 5, so let's split the difference there and hope that it looks a little closer to what we're going for. That's a little... yeah, that's not bad. Kind of wish there was like something in between, but that's okay. So we've got our tags, our actions, and our timestamps. I mean, again, I think that's going to be pretty nice just to get it started. So now I think we probably want to move on to the mobile application here. Actually, there's a couple of things. So I want this bar to be toggleable. So we need to add a button that actually does hover the document here that will allow us to click to collapse and expand this sidebar. And then that same thing will be used on mobile, but on mobile we're going to actually change the way that it's displayed a little bit. So let's start with that. Let's start with a button that allows us to show and hide this. I'm going to go ahead and commit what we have though. So we've got background. We moved the background image. Yep. We dropped those little line headers, and yeah, that's it. Cool. So I think we're just going to amend the last commit. Yeah, I'll do a -- amend here, and we will change the message. So add the editor meta panel with actions, tags, and timestamps. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, Rusty. I'm glad that you stopped in again. That was awesome. And like I said, I won't forget about that idea of showing the actionable items in the sidebar in that meta panel. I really like that idea. And if I don't get to it today, I'll probably just create an issue on GitHub to track it. Did I already? No, status. Okay, cool. Get L again, so we have our actual commit now. And for this next part, I'm going to do a separate commit. So this is going to be the toggle ability of it. So let's come back in here. And in the editor, right, so we actually want this in the editor itself, either in the editor or in the container. I'm not really sure yet. Actually, we might actually need to add a new div, because the container here, I believe the container element is not going to be this full width. So let's take a look. Let's run all the way. We've got the, yeah, here's the editor. So it's not the full width. So this isn't going to work. The container has a margin, so that's not going to work either. So we really do need another div, actually another div wrapper that we can use to kind of align this button. So what we're going to do is, inside here, we're going to add a div. We'll just call it editor container, I guess. It might not even need a class name now that I think about it, but we'll see here in a second. Cool. And editor container is just a regular div, nothing special about it. Oh, but the height is going to be off a little bit. So we need to apply a deflex. There we go. Perfect. And now, okay, actually it's still off a little bit. Something's odd. Let's find out. Here's editor container. Oh, we need a flex grow 1 on this as well. So flex grow 1 to fill the remaining space. There we go. So now we're back to normal. Now we're in a good spot, and we should have a div somewhere here, which is the full editor area without the meta bar on the right side. So that's what we want. And in here is where we're going to inject this new button. So inside this div, so we're going to have a button here. And it's going to be similar to some of these others. So this is going to be probably an info button is what I'm thinking. Or I'm not really sure what we'll use for terminology, but for now I'll just say info. We'll give it a class of btn and btn secondary. Okay, that looks good. It looks a little off right now, but that actually makes sense because of the deflex that we have going on. So all I need to do is, I believe, give it a position of absolute. So I think that's position absolute, actually. Perfect. We need to give the parent here a position of relative, because we're relatively positioning this absolute button based on this container specifically. So that looks good. And then we're going to, what are we going to do? I think Bootstrap has some helpers. I'd rather do that than write some custom CSS if possible. So we're going to say position, utilities position. And we've got position absolute, position fixed. I think absolute is correct, although it doesn't really give me any help for aligning it to the right or bottom. So let's see, sticky top makes sense. Let's go ahead, I guess, and give it a custom class for now. I'll have to come back and look and see if there's actually a Bootstrap utility that can help us align this where we want. But what I want is, I want this button, which actually needs to be a small button, I believe. Yeah, button SM. Okay. btn SM. So that looks better. We've got a little info button. We're going to add an icon at some point. And what I really want it to do, I want it to be absolutely positioned, but I want it to be offset on the right and the top by about 1 EM. So that lines up with this button right here, just on the inside. So let's give it a class, I guess. Actually, this might be a good call for a utility helper. So yeah, let's do that. So right 3. I believe 3 is usually our identifier for 1 EM. We're going to say, actually, let me just check that. Let's go ahead and look and see. So P3 is padding 1 REM. Important. Okay, so we're going to do right 1 REM. I guess we'll also match the important flags like Bootstrap uses. And then we'll also do one for top. So we're just defining some utility classes, because I'd rather do this and then be able to replace these later when we switch to Tailwind. Whoops. And instead of right 1 EM, this one's going to be top 1 EM, 1 REM. All right, now we just need to add those. So we're going to say top 3, right 3. Perfect. And as you can see here now, we have our button. It is aligned like vertically with the discard button here, and it is aligned horizontally as well with the discard, evenly spaced. And the idea is when we click this button, it's going to toggle this sidebar. So, nothing yet, of course. Let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to add a new data element here. This data element is just going, yeah, this is the editor. So this data element is going to be pretty basic. It's just going to say show meta. By default, it is going to be false. False? Yeah, we'll have them toggle it on. So by default, it's going to be false. We're going to add a click handler to that button that we added, and it is going to be at click toggle meta. This is going to be somewhat similar to that that edit documents button that we added previously. And all I need to do is add a method called toggle meta, and this is going to say this dot show, whoops, if I could type, show meta equals not this dot show meta. So this is very similar to what we did actually before. Seems straightforward. And then we just need to link that show meta variable to this actual panel here, and we'll just say v if show meta. Boom. So refresh the page, it's closed, we click the button, and it appears. Click the button again, and it closes. So that is working as we expected now. Awesome. So now that we have this set up, it'll be pretty easy if we just, whoops, wrong thing. If we toggle mobile view now, you'll see that we have this floating button here for info. You click it. Oh, actually, it's not clickable, which is interesting. We might need to add a Z index to that or something. Let's go ahead and give that a shot. I don't know if that's something that Bootstrap has either. It does, okay. Z index, maybe? I'm not seeing a Z index like helper. Interesting. I guess I will add a utility for that as well for now. So we'll say Z index 10. We'll add a couple of them. So we'll say Z index 1. There we go. But the Z index is kind of like the depth of the page, so it allows you to align elements when they overlap, like one above another. And that typically, like, it's not too much of an issue if you define your HTML like properly, but sometimes you really do have to like coerce it one way or the other. So we'll do this. We'll say, I need to close that. We're not even using that one. We will say for the button, Z index 10. All right, and let's see if that solves our mobile issue here. Yes, so now you can see the cursor is flashing behind it instead of in front of it, and now we should be able to toggle it. Perfect. So a couple other minor things is on mobile, we want this behavior to actually work a little bit differently. So on desktop, it's okay if we, on desktop, it is okay if we just toggle the sidebar on and off. But on mobile, what we're going to want to have happen is we're going to want to have it actually hide the editor and just show the meta info, I think. I have to think about that one. Because the behavior right now is going to be, or actually, we can have it show and have the panel appear above the document, either above or under the document instead of beside it. I think that actually might be an even better experience. So let's test that out. So the idea here is that if we change this, let's see, right now the container for this is dflex, flex grow 1, and flex row. So what we're going to do is we're going to say flex, I typically do mobile first. We're going to say flex column and see what that looks like. Okay, so that appears down at the bottom, and maybe the bottom is where we want it. We'll figure that out here in a minute. We can always reverse that direction too pretty easily. Cool. So you see it's down here at the bottom. We really only want that for mobile though. And so we're going to say flex column, and then Bootstrap actually gives us some pretty nice size utility classes. So we can say something like flex, what is it? Flex MD row, I think, if I did it correctly. Yeah, so on medium size or larger screens, it will be a row direction, but on smaller screens, it will be, let me get there. There we go. That gets really tiny, but hopefully we'll have to handle that screen size. Actually, I'm going to make it large or more. So flex LG row means by default it's the column direction, but when it's on a large screen or when it's on a large defined screen or larger, so there's large and then there's extra large, it's going to switch to a row direction. So there we go. That's kind of a weird look on this size screen, but honestly, like, this is kind of representing a tablet, I guess, and it's not too bad. It could be worse, so I'll leave that for now. On a large screen, we have the sidebar here off to the side. On a medium-ish screen, again, like maybe like an iPad or something, it would look like this. And on a smaller screen like a phone, it would actually be underneath the editor. And again, we could actually add this so that it's at the top of the editor by doing flex column reverse, I believe. And now it's above the editor instead of below. So that's something we're thinking about too, right? Like, does it make more sense to have it up here or down below? And I'm not really sure what the answer is to that, to be honest. So I'm going to switch the orientation here. I'm going to emulate mobile. Oh, interesting. It's not actually letting me scroll. That's an issue. We'll have to fix that, but yeah, I can't scroll it. That might be a different problem. For now, I think it's actually, it looks pretty good at the top, I think, because you can toggle it on and off, and the idea is like when you just press this, if you're interacting like on mobile with your phone, for instance, and I hit a button at the top of my screen, it would make sense that my thumb is still near what the next action I want to take, which in this instance would be one of these probably, right? Or viewing this data. So rather than having to scroll to the bottom of your document, which could be very long. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at the top. I think that looks pretty good. And then on desktop, it's off to the side. So I'm actually pretty happy with how this is looking. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to do. I guess let's go ahead and commit this. So what did we do? We added these utility classes. There's a couple more that it could be used. So I could add left and bottom, and I could also add different sizes. But for now, we're just going to add what we need. We added a new container class. Yep, we added the button. We added some logic. Pretty straightforward. So going to go ahead and commit that. Whoops. What are we doing? Allow user to toggle meta panel and add mobile support for meta panel. Okay, that looks pretty good. What else? The scrolling. So let's figure out why scrolling isn't working. That's kind of interesting. Also, let me have 1 second here. I'm just going to do a little time check. Looks like it's about 6:40. Yeah, this scrolling issue is going to be fun to, whoops. It's going to be fun to debug. So let's shrink that up a bit. And let's inspect and see what's going on here. One of these elements needs to, so this one has overflow auto. Ah, I see what happened. When I added that wrapper last time, what did I add that for? I don't remember why I added this wrapper, but one of the changes I made recently added an extra div in here, and overflow auto is set on the outside div, which isn't doing anything because the inside div by default resizes to match the outside div. So we just need to remove this overflow auto on the content, which I'm assuming it still works on these screens. Yep, like I would expect. So actually, that's interesting. I wonder, let me find a longer one. So we can either move overflow auto, or I can fix it so that it actually counts the height, or calculates the height properly. Let's dig in just a little bit here into the content. Content overflow auto, flex grow 1. Excuse me. Flex column reverse looks good. Position relative. One of these containers is not this one appears to be the right height. Oh, that's what it is. So the actual editor itself is the correct height, but I bet it has overflow hidden on one of these, which is leading it to trim it off. So I'm going to go ahead and add that class to one of these. Got to figure out which one is the correct one. So I believe it's being passed in here. So overflow auto. Yep. Simple enough. Look at that. Let's make sure this works with our new panel. Uh-oh. That's not the right element we wanted on, though, as you can see, because that is now only scrolling the content and not the section above. And where in reality, I think, yeah, in reality, we'd want the whole thing to scroll, whether it's expanded or closed. So we're getting close, but that's not quite what we need. And also, I want to make sure I didn't break it on desktop. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. So, what do we do then? Let's do... Actually, let me get some water. Alrighty, so that doesn't quite work. Instead, what we need is we need this flex item to not collapse its size. So maybe overflow visible is a better utility. So it's still working here, it looks like. Excellent. And then on mobile, still not working on mobile. Let's inspect this one last time. So the content has overflow auto. Flex column reverse. Oh, I think I put it on the wrong one. I think I actually want it on one right above this. So overflow auto. Yep. All right, and now, perfect. And now we can scroll the entire length, as you can see here, and that is exactly what we want. So that looks good. Now we have access to the we have access to our meta panel here. We can scroll the entire document. I believe this is still going to work and look good on desktop. Oh, that's a little bit of an issue. Interesting. I feel like that was not happening before I did this. Oh, it was already happening. Well, isn't that interesting? I guess one solve for that is to give the meta a fixed position where it's sitting. Oh, that's not what you want. Give me 1 sec here. Or maybe sticky is better. That's still not doing it. Oh, I think sticky top is actually what we want. Huh. Let me undo those changes and see where we're at. Let's see. Okay, so I'm back to the base here. Scrolling works here. It should not work on mobile. It does not. Open the info panel. Scrolling works here, but now our meta bar is incorrect. So I'm thinking we do want an overflow on the editor. Oh, here we go. So we want to, I guess we'll want it to be conditional based on the screen size, yet another one. So what we can do here is we can say overflow auto by default, which is going to solve our mobile problem. Looks like it's the same here that it was. That's good. So overflow auto will solve our mobile problem here. And then in order to solve the desktop problem, all we need to say is, whoops, well, not that. We need to add another overflow to the editor container. Yeah, so overflow MD, would it be MD? No, it'd be LG auto. So this still looks good on mobile. We can scroll the entire thing. That's good. And then as soon as we stop the emulation, uh-oh, my touchpad just shut off. Oh, no, my laptop lagged or froze for a second there. That's unfortunate. And then we'll say overflow LG hidden, I believe, is what we need to do. Well, that's not working. I wonder if overflow is not one that we can do based on sizes. I bet that's what it is. So overflow. Interesting. I'm not seeing it for some reason in here. I mean, it's definitely a utility that I've used. As we just saw, but I guess it doesn't actually have size options for overflow, which is kind of odd. So That's all right. We can work around this. So let's see. What are we dealing with? This is correct on desktop, but this is what leads us to the kind of odd behavior on mobile. So give me a second though. I'm going to try something. Oops. I saw another little issue I'd like to fix, which is I'd like this button to actually just stick right here, even as we scroll. And that should be doable using position sticky. Well, that certainly did it. That's not exactly how I wanted it to appear, though. We'll come back to that, too. And then let's look at mobile. I might have to come back to this yet again with this mobile experience that we've got here. So, gaming, going to lay down for a bit. Hope the rest of the stream goes well. If you see me on Apex later, tell me to quit being a tryhard and sleep. I will do that. Definitely get some rest, though. I hope you feel better, man. Being sick is definitely no fun. Alrighty. Sec here. Let's see. So, yeah, we definitely have an issue here with the overflow not working as it should. What I'm unsure about is the sizing. So flex, allow flex box container to overflow, I think is what we need to work on. I wonder if this has to do with our flex direction issue. Oops. All right, let's get rid of the overflow. Oh, wait a second. Did I still had overflow auto set on here. I didn't mean to. Let's get rid of that for a moment. Okay, so it's definitely broken on mobile now. And desktop, so that's definitely not what we want. Okay. Back to square one. Could have just checked this out, I guess, because we're probably back to, yep, no changes. Yeah, that is incorrect, of course. Instead, let's add this back. Good. Looks good. Now the background image is scrolling as well, which is unfortunate. That's definitely not what we want. Excuse me. Let's go back to the content. Let's add in flex grow 1, overflow auto. But for some reason on mobile, it's getting completely messed up. I don't want to remove it though because there's a lot of other components that are using that. This is closer to what we want. I mean, it's not terrible on mobile. It's definitely not exactly what I would like to see with that scroll. I guess if I could fix the sticky button, then that would be good enough, and then they'd be able to open and collapse this pretty easily. Well, assuming there's not too much content in here, which is maybe a poor assumption. This might be another one that we have to come back to, though, depending on how this goes. Let's start inspecting and figure out where exactly this is happening. So this is actually expanding its height. So this element itself is not restricting its height, which is probably part of the problem here. So yeah, sure enough. And now that button isn't working at all, which is interesting. Oh, because this is the editor container. So it seems like maybe the problem is that the overflow is not up a level. Or rather, the height restriction is not up a level. So let's try that. Let's remove that height 100% that we just added. And instead, let's apply that up one more level. Flex column reverse. Flex grow is 1. This is definitely an interesting flex issue. So if we have the direction as column, then flex grow should be the vertical height. Excuse me. That makes sense. So the vertical height is being restricted because of flex grow in this instance. So maybe we don't actually want flex grow 1. No. Oh, wait, is it in there twice? That's interesting. Flex. I mean, that obviously didn't do it. And then moving overflow auto to the wrapper again. Okay, this could use a flex grow as well. Allow flexbox to expand to child size. Take a couple little resources here. Explanation. Interesting. I wonder if this is a min width issue. Flex basis. This is a less common scenario I really have to deal with using Flexbox. So I'm not really sure. I guess we could try an auto basis, but that's probably the default. Let's actually look at the computed properties and see. Excuse me. Computed flex. I don't see a flex basis. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. Okay. Still not a win there. So flex grow is 1, flex direction is column reverse. Wonder if this has the same issue with column. Oops. Definitely a lot of trial and error here with this one, because I'm not really sure what the issue is, per se. Oops. Why isn't that working? There we go. Oh, that's interesting. It works when the flex direction is column, but it has to do with it being column reverse, so flex column reverse, not expanding. So interestingly, when it's reversed, it's like it's expanding to fill the container, but then it's stopping when it gets to the top of the document, rather than expanding like it normally does in a column layout. Here we go. Column reverse and overflow Y not scrollable. This is definitely looking better. Let's go ahead and scroll to the bottom, work our way back up. The issue seems to be fixed. Not for me. Still persists, okay. Same thing. Overflow Y scroll. Height. Oh, that's just nesting it. That's not going to solve my problem. Well, luckily, we actually do have an option to work around this, which is not like the most ideal, but what I can do is I can reverse the order of these elements of meta and editor, and we can use row reverse instead of column reverse, which I think will solve our problem since we're not doing any sort of horizontal scrolling. So let's check this out on mobile first. That is not what you want. I think I might have pasted that in the wrong place. Okay. No, that's correct. So right here, we will do column instead of column reverse. Oh, I think I still have, let's get rid of that overflow auto here. There we go. So that looks better. So now it's working, interestingly. And then let's check desktop again. Okay, so we're getting closer. Now I just need to say flex LG row reverse. Good. And then we just need to fix that overflow on the larger screen. So that we can work with. So I'm not sure if I can fix the scroll bar positioning, but I think we can fix the this element's height. So the meta height is not matching. Oh, it is. The overflow is just happening. The overflow should be happening on the editor, but it's not. All right, getting a little closer. Overflow. Okay. And I probably just broke it on mobile again, of course. So I need a like media query utility class now, so I can only apply the overflow on smaller or larger screens. So what I need to do is bootstrap overflow on screen on breakpoint. Overflow. Sizable. It's not quite it. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's an existing utility class for what I would like to do, which is pretty unfortunate. Yeah, that's not what we want. Okay, we might just have to deal with the desktop issue. Again, I guess we could do fixed positioning on the element on the right. So the meta. Let's see. So if we did do, and I know Bootstrap has utilities for sticky. Here we go. Sticky top. Source port query. Okay. So sticky top, exactly. Let's do this. Let's do sticky top. This will need to be relative, so position relative. Oh, I need to change that back. I need to get rid of that overflow. Okay. Still not working. Which one is this one? So that element itself is getting scrolled. So I guess whichever one has overflow auto needs to have position relative. Let's do that. Makes sense. All right, well, not working. The minor little things. Let's see, we're already at 7:15 here. So I'm thinking about calling this in a minute because, mostly because of the time crunch, I really didn't want to stream for too long today. It's unfortunate though that I'm running into so many issues with this and the actual layout. We did get our meta bar working. We got the UI cleared up a little bit. We got our toggleable button working. I mean, oh yeah, thank you for posting the Discord invite again. I appreciate that. If anyone is watching and would like to pop in the Discord, feel free. In the Discord, there's not really much yet, but I'm always available to answer any questions. And thank you for posting GitHub. GitHub.com/voraciousdev is my GitHub, and on there you'll find Octo, the open source version of Octo, which is essentially the entire client without the Firebase integration. That's only on octo.app. And my Twitter too. Yeah, thanks. Posting all the things. And feel free to connect, of course. Like my, all three of those links are also in my About Me section, or my About section on Twitch here. So another place you can find them if you feel like checking that out later. I'm not going to end it just yet, though. I am going to try a couple more things. Just kind of not talking quite as much because I'm trying to mentally process a little more, try to think through maybe some clever workarounds for this issue. I mean, I definitely know a way I can actually use some JavaScript utilities that I've used in the past. So I have something in here called MQ, view MQ, and I've used this in a couple of other places. What is this doing? Yeah, see, so I'm using, oh, I'm actually using it in the editor already. That's so funny. So if it's medium or larger, return MD include. So that's a true or false. Oh, that's a simple way we could go about it. That's funny. Let's do that. So if it's medium or larger, we'll put the scroll on the editor. Let me think about that. Yeah. Okay, we can totally use that. Wow. That's so funny. It was already in here. I was really trying to do this with just Bootstrap, and I think that's where I was running into some hurdles, because it appears it's going to be pretty difficult to do with just Bootstrap. So if I change, let's get it back to working on mobile. I always like, again, mobile to be the default. Okay, that looks good. I can't even remember what exactly I changed there. I think I just changed a... Oh, that's right. I used flex column and then flex row reverse instead. Perfect. Well, that looks good. Looks like it's scrolling, working as it should. So mobile's good. Now we just need to fix desktop. So on Medium Plus, we're going to add an overflow here. So we're going to use a dynamic class attribute here. And it's going to be an object that says, what are we going to apply? We're going to apply a class called Overflow Auto, but only when Medium Plus is true. So I think that's how we do it. Yeah, okay, cool. So we've got our scroll here. If we look at the mobile view again, mobile still works as it should. So kind of hacked it a little bit with some JavaScript using that media query utility, which I probably should have done earlier, but I honestly I haven't used it in a while, and I'm trying to rely on the CSS framework more than just some JS hacks. So what I could have done is actually added some more utility classes, but I've already added like 4 of them on this stream alone, and I'm really trying to not just create a bunch of custom utility classes for Bootstrap, because I'm trying to eventually migrate away from Bootstrap. So there is one more little thing I would like to change, and that is the scroll bar. I actually want to add a little bit of a space around the scroll bar, but I'm trying to think now because I'm not entirely sure how I want to go about that. I'm trying to like think through. I might even have had a commit already. Nothing in the stash. What about git branch? Nothing in the branch. Did I have something on GitHub maybe? No, I don't. Well, isn't that interesting? Or wait, it says view all. Is that not all of them? That is all of them. Okay. So let's see. How do we go about adding that scroll bar spacing? I believe we need to use a box. What is it? Padding box. Is it box sizing padding box? No. Maybe I'm just remembering the incorrect name. Add space around custom scroll bar. This is not, having a custom scroll bar in general is not something I've really ever had to deal with, so. That's not it. Background clip. I think that's what it was. So background clip padding box. I bet that's one of them. It is. Perfect. Okay, so what do I need to do? I need to say background clip padding box on the scroll bar. Oops. Okay, we'll come back to this actually. The editor. We did our changes, we got that working, we got the scroll bar to appear in the right place, and that's it. So we're going to add, actually, let's see, git L, add user, allow user to toggle the meta panel, add mobile support for meta panel. This fits in with that, so I'm just going to amend that commit. Perfect. And so now, what do we need to do? On the actual scroll bar itself, or maybe it's the thumb itself, we want to add, oops, background clip padding box. Okay, let's pull up Octo here so we're ready for this, ready to look at these changes. And then I think I need to add either maybe a margin around the thumb track. So we'll go ahead and try that. Margin 0.125 rem. I mean, maybe padding, right? That would make sense given what we're looking at. That's not it though. Or is it just border? Because border, let's find out. Transparent. Yeah, it was border, perfect. So that looks pretty good now. Now that scroll bar looks quite a bit thinner, a little more out of the way. Let's see, let me go back to desktop and move this. So we've got a scroll bar here. I would probably like it to be a little bit thicker though, and still have the spacing around it. So maybe now We want to increase the radius a little bit so it's a little more noticeable on the tracker. And then also we want to increase the thickness a little bit. So width, maybe 0.75 now. Whoa, maybe not. Seems like a significant amount. Let me look at that again. That's not too bad, I guess. It looks pretty good. It's the same width that it was now. It's just now it has a little bit of a padding around it. The same goes for over here. So let's try a little bit more of a border there. Oops. Just trying out a couple different styles here. Yeah, I like the light amount of spacing, nothing crazy. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go with that. Yeah. And then actually gonna space those out a little bit. Yeah, I think that thickness is fine. So that was just a minor little detail that I noticed before after that scroll bar was added that I wanted to adjust a little bit. And I'm pretty happy with the way that looks now. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. Add spacing around scroll bar. Cool. Now we're going to push it up and go ahead and make that PR. So we actually did finish it up, which is pretty awesome. I was afraid we were going to have to call that. My brain was just getting a little bit exhausted. It's a very different experience trying to work through these issues on stream, especially like when I do get stuck on something. Made me feel a little bit anxious, but that's not too bad. Like I have paired a lot in the past, so it's not even anxiety. It's more that I think that by me focusing on the fact that I'm streaming more, it doesn't allow my brain as much like bandwidth to focus on the problem at hand. But we did figure it out. Like right after I said that, we obviously solved the scroll bar issue, and then now this as well. Love to experience it. Good, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I love about the idea of live streaming. It's just like a very raw experience. Like there's no editing or production into it. Like you see exactly what the process is like for someone, which is pretty cool. I like that. Okay. Scroll bar looks good. We push these up. Let's swap over here. Create that pull request. Add meta panel. I'll say add document meta panel. Oh man, we didn't finish this 100%. There's one last thing that we absolutely need to do. Which is I forgot to add the icon for the button. I like consistency, so that's only going to take a second. Let's go ahead and look for, why am I not seeing the, there it is, icons, it was missing. Info, okay. Let me get a little bit of a picture here for the button along with all of the other icons. I'm just kind of curious which one I think fits, round or rectangular, So, and solid or not solid. Let's see. I've been going with the not solid for most of my icons, it looks like. So I'll be consistent there. Excuse me. And I have a mix of rectangular and non-rectangular. So let's just try them both and see which one looks better. It'll be easy enough to swap those out. So we'll go with the square first. Copy that. We're going to duplicate a label. So I'm going to duplicate code. We're going to call it info. oh, we also need to drop the icon in there. So we're going to have an info icon. Info icon. The name is info. Mount the info icon. Pretty straightforward. Okay, and so now the actual icon itself, which I skipped, we'll just duplicate code again. Info. We override the path here with our new SVG path. Actually, we don't need the SVG portion of that. Looks good. And then we call it info. And I believe that is it. Cool. So now we've got our icon and our label. And what we're going to do is, in the editor, we're going to import that label, which we've already done once, at least once, right? So we've got code label, duplicate label, and now we're going to have an info label. And then we mount info label. And now we can use info label, similar to how we used the other ones in here. So let's see, where have I done that? I've done that right here, actually. So we just drop it right inside of a button, which we already have, of course, with our meta button. So we're going to use an info label component. And inside it's just going to say info. Take a look. Uh-oh. I didn't register it. So I pulled it in. Info label. Oh, wait, I did register it. Uh-oh, where did that error come from? Labels info.view. Okay. Info.view. Info icon. It's interesting. I mean, it looks good to me. What on earth? Okay. Unknown custom element code icon. Oh, uh-oh. What did I do? Oh, here we go. I forgot to update it here. Info icon. That's better. There we go. And now we've got our little info icon. And now that I'm looking at it, I am thinking the circular one is going to look a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead. That's as simple as just replacing this. And all we need to do is in that icon now, we just drop in this new SVG path stuff. So get rid of the SVG wrapper, tab these over, and take a look. Did I not save it? Or what did I do? I just copied the rectangular one again. Look at me. Just copy the piece we need this time. That's better. All right. Yeah, I think I like it with the round. I think it just fits a little bit better with what we're looking at here. Nice. Okay, so now we've got our new label type, our new icon. It's toggleable. I love it. So, yeah, simple. Just added those. Let's look at this again. Add spacing. Allow user to toggle meta panel. Yeah, so we added that button in the second commit there. So we're going to add this. Commit, squash, rebase. All right. I want to make sure I'm up to date with master. Yep. All right. Push it up. Yeah, now we've got this new icon in here. Perfect. Awesome. So we've got our 3 commits here. Add document meta panel closes number 65. Yeah. This moves the existing actions into a new meta panel that is toggleable. Toggleable. We'll just pretend it's a word. That can be toggled from the editor view. This moves the existing action to new meta panel that can be toggled from the editor view. The new meta panel also shows tags in the active document and the document's timestamps. Relevant timestamps, I'll say for now. Hi T-Max, how's it going? Okay, so in case you weren't following, we're creating a PR right now with some of the changes that we just actually finished up on stream. This new piece of functionality we actually started during the stream on Wednesday, but had to change to a new one. You dummy thick, what? Glad to hear it's going all right. All right, new meta panel also. Making sure this summary makes sense. I think that makes sense. There's one more change that I would like to do actually before we actually push this pull request through. And I could of course create it and then do a force push and track that. And in fact, honestly, we'll just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to create this PR, but there's one more change that I want to make before we actually stop. I don't even know what to say about that, but all right. Let's go ahead. Yeah, I wasn't really sure where that was going, so that was probably a good call on the ban. I'll have to see if they message me and see if maybe they were just like trolling or something. I'm not really sure. It was kind of weird. It was in my, like for me, I was kind of on the fence. I was like gonna wait and see where things went, but I couldn't tell. It almost seems like a bot, like with the responses and the timing of them. So I don't know. It was definitely odd though. Okay, so we created this PR. There, like I was saying, there's one more change that I would like to make. And what was that change? Now I have to remember what it was. It's the other fun part. I was going to, maybe if I look at the UI, it'll remind me. Oh, the timestamps, that's right. So on a new document, we're seeing that it showed a created at and updated at, but we don't actually want that. We want it to say like not yet created, not yet updated for all of those things. So if we go back to the editor, then if we go back to the editor here, then all we need to do is go down to where these methods are calculated. So we have an if right here, this if-else sort of thing for saved at, and we're kind of going to want the same thing for these other ones. And we're just going to say, what is it? If this dot route dot params dot ID, so the same check here. Otherwise, return not yet created. And then we'll do the same sort of template here for discarded and updated. Not yet updated. Then not yet, or just, actually, I'll leave this one out, actually, now that I think about that, because discarded is kind of a special case. Okay, so on a new document, it says not yet saved, not yet created, not yet updated. And as soon as we do something, test, oh, I know why that happened. So I'm actually glad that we just did that, because that's something we're going to want to fix. That's not the behavior that a user would expect for that to close like that. All right. Okay, so yeah, that was unfortunately not the behavior we wanted, but the reason it happened is because this component actually gets redirected and remounted when we go from a new document to a created document, and that's because of the route. Actually, if we look at this, it's on a separate route, so document/new. So if I open this up, this state of whether or not it's opened or closed is actually reset. And so there's a couple of ways to go about fixing that, and I think the way that I'd like to go about it is to make this state, this piece of state actually tracked in the store instead of local to the component. So all we need to do then is add a new action. Excuse me. We need to add a new action. We need to bind to that state value. And then add the new, dispatchers and mutators for that. So, going to be pretty simple, but I think that's important to do. Okay. Yeah, honestly, and showing this discard and duplicate button is also something we probably don't want to do on a document that's not yet created, but I will say that I will call that out of scope because we actually already show these on a not created document. So that's a different problem that we'll come back to. All right, so when we toggle this, we're going to toggle it on the actual Vuex store. So what that means is we need to change the toggle meta, which actually that method will still exist, but we need to change the actual data property, wherever that is, down here, to be a computed method. And this is just going to be, I'll just put it right here, show meta, and this computed property is going to return this dot store dot state dot documents dot, actually it's going to be this dot store dot state dot, what would I even do? We'll just say show meta. I'll come back to where that's going to live here in a second. So we're pulling it from the state, though, from the store. Let's go into store.js and figure out if we want it in here or somewhere else. So the menu is here. Documents. Let's look at the documents module. Because here's where I'm thinking about putting it, but no, this is actually a little bit different. This has to do with interacting with the documents themselves. The editor is still managed sort of in this central store, so we're going to do it here. We're just going to add something here that says show meta false by default, right? So what I'm thinking we could do is eventually there could actually be a setting, and that setting could be turned on or off, where it could just, anytime you load the editor, it'll always be displaying, and you can still toggle it. or it'll always be hidden. But for now, we'll just do a default if it's hidden, and you can turn it on. So show meta false. Perfect. We're going to be adding a new action here, and we're going to, what are we going to do? I guess we'll just do a toggle. So toggle meta. So in actions.js, we're going to add a toggle meta action. All right. And toggle meta looks good. We're going to import that in store here. And then we're going to define an action here. Toggle meta. All right. Accepts the context. We're going to call the toggle meta context. So the mutation, we're going to define that mutation here. Getting there slowly. A little bit of boilerplate. And it's going to say state.show meta equals not state.show meta, right? We're just toggling it. So that's just like what we were doing before, but now we're doing it through an action dispatch instead. What that means is in the editor, we now need to import this action, toggle meta, and we need to change our toggle meta method to say this.store.dispatch toggle meta, right? So, hey Lococo, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I am having a good night. I'm probably not going to be on here too much longer, hoping to get some more Apex in later. Actually, I don't think I played it all today. But thanks for stopping by. How was your night? Were you streaming today? Or I feel like I saw you mention something about not streaming, but I could be totally wrong there. Oh yeah, no problem about gifting the sub. I mean, you know, it's one sub, so I try to, like, if I see anyone who interacts like with Tiff's chat like regularly, or someone that Tiff interacts with, I try to do some gift subs. Yeah, okay, I thought I saw something about you not having a stream today. Sorry to hear about the headache, though. That's definitely not fun. I get them pretty bad sometimes, and they can be pretty debilitating. Where were we? So, right. Actually, we can probably test this now, and it might even work. Hey, look at that. So we switched it to use the Vuex store now, and now if I add a new document, perfect. It doesn't disappear because it's not resetting the component state, because it's actually pulling it from the store now. Awesome. So I think that was pretty much it. Right? Am I forgetting something? I think that was it. Yeah. Awesome. I think we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and commit those changes. So we moved all of this, and I believe all of this logic actually lived in the first commit. So we have like 3 commits in GitHub right now. Let's go ahead and take a look. But I think show meta, I lied, it's not in that one, it's in the middle commit for toggle meta panel. That makes sense. Show meta, perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to add all of that. We're going to create a squash commit, and we're going to rebase that. Whoops. There we go. So now we have the 3 commits still. Going to push that up. Then I think we'll be ready to potentially merge this PR, at least ready to review it. Lots of tabs open. Okay. So we've got our 3 commits here. We add the meta panel with actions, tags, and timestamps. Looks right. We moved the logo. Yeah, relaxing is always good. Okay, this looks good. Awesome. Step into the next one. Adding the toggle, adding the mobile view. And last one, adding some spacing around the scroll bar. All right, I think this PR is looking pretty good. So I say we go ahead and merge it. Closes 65, we have the meta panel. This is not going to deploy it, of course. We still need to do that, but as we did last time on the stream, I like to run through and do like a final test of multiple features before I actually create a new release. So for now, we'll merge it and we'll leave it there. Let's see, where are we at? We are right at the 2-hour mark, actually, which is pretty awesome. I didn't intend on streaming this long today, but it also took a little longer than I expected to get this done. That being said, I do think I'm going to call it. We got this feature finished. We started this on Wednesday. It seems like some of these newer features, especially ones that are going to require a bit of thought, might be multi-day or multi-stream initiatives, and that's totally fine. I am not positive yet what I'll be working on next. I will say, as I've already mentioned a couple of times before, I absolutely plan very soon on starting an Intro to Web Development course here on Twitch. We will be using an existing curriculum to do that course so that it would be something that anyone could follow along with on their own time and just pop into the stream whenever they can. But the idea is to have like an open, safe space for people to be able to come in, ask questions, learn more about development, specifically web development, to see what it's like. And, you know, for some people, if it's what you're looking for, you know, this is a pretty awesome field to get into as a career change even. Thank you. I appreciate it. I guess like to close, I'll just say that it's been awesome as always. A lot of fun. A lot of fun having other people hang out while I'm working through this open source project. And if you want to connect with me, haven't connected with me yet, my About section has links to my own Discord, which is where we'll actually discuss the Intro to Web Development series once that's started. It's brand new. The Discord is brand new, so don't expect any good content in there yet. There's also a link to my Twitter, so we can connect there, and a link to my GitHub, which is where Octo is hosted, as well as some other projects that I like to work on. Hey, Squiddy. Yeah, that would be amazing. I definitely hope to see you again. Thanks for stopping in at all, though. That's really awesome. But otherwise, you know, have a good rest of your evening, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.